What's up everyone and welcome to the new era of StarCraft 2 AI challenges. A couple years ago when I finished the first ever 1v7 Insane AI challenge, it kind of seemed like AI challenges were coming to an end. I could do it with different races and different matchups and stuff like that, but the max difficulty had been reached. I was thinking, why don't I just increase the difficulty myself? Recently, I've been using a mod to play against like 10 gold players and 10 bronze players and give everyone more stats or less stats, stuff like that. And I was wondering, I might as well just do that with AI as well. So today is going to be the first attempt of that. I'm going to play 1v5 against the extreme AI, which is going to be the insane AI with plus 25% either HP or damage boost. So in summary, they're going to have a map hacks. They will mine 40% more. And they have 25% more damage or HP. It's going to be extremely hard, but extremely fun. Enjoy. All right, here we go. As you can see, 5 insane AIs with 25% increase. Some of them in HP, some of them in damage. I didn't have any preference really, so I just mixed them up. I'm not sure if it would make a difference if it would be 5 HP only or 5 damage only. Guess it doesn't matter for now. Now, the map we're going to be playing on is the Boneyard. The first step in any of these AI challenges, whether it's my past 1v7 against Insane or 1v10 against Elite, whatever, first you have to figure out what map to play on. It's always a bit of a difficult process because different matchups, you know, it matters if you're playing against only Zergs or only Protoss or all random. You kind of need different maps for all of them because every race has their personal strengths. For example, if you go up against Terran, they have siege tanks, so you want to make sure that there is not too much space on the low ground where their tanks can siege, because then they can kill your building from the low ground, stuff like that. Now, what I noticed is that, first of all, with the 25% increase, you cannot deal with a neighbor. If you guys have watched my 1v7 against the Insane AI before, you'll realize I always have a strategy at dealing with a neighbor. It's usually building my buildings in a certain way or baiting them to come over with their SCVs in a certain way so I can kill them off. When they have 25% extra HP or damage, you don't want to fight against their workers. So I had to pick an 8-player map where I wouldn't have a neighbor. So on this map, there are going to be 2 empty spots. One of them is going to be my neighbor, and one of them is going to be a random base on the map. Now that brings me to the first part why this 1v5 is harder than a regular 1v7. And that is that even though there are less players, they are still going to manage to mine out the map. If you guys have seen these challenges before, you will know that their armies get so ridiculously big that I cannot really move out unless I find out a sneaky way to do it, right? So even though there are less players, they are still going to have all the money on the map, unless I somehow manage to deny some of it, which in this map, there is some potential to do that. I can siege liberators on those the base to the left of my main base right now, that is a gold base that I can siege, and there's also one to the top middle. Maybe I'll be able to deny that one later. Now, my strategy for this map is based on my strategy against all Zergs, and that is to go for a CC first with a fast engineering bay so I can make a planetary. So what I know about the Insane AI is that their attacks usually start at like 3 minutes. I don't mean every single game, but their earliest attack usually hits at around 3 minutes. The latest they can possibly ever start attacking is like 7 minutes. But even though that sounds like you would prefer it, I actually do not prefer that at all, especially in this challenge, and I'll explain you why. So, what that means if they attack at 7 minutes is that their army is just going to be way, way bigger. Because they played economically at the start, they'll attack later. Why this is so difficult here is because technically more units can attack. That's not the right way to say it. So the units that can attack are going to be stronger. I'm defending on a ramp, right? So if 10 immortals get to shoot, there's no space for more immortals. So normally it would also be 10 immortals, but now they're 25% stronger. So if I have to deal with a massive attack at 7 minutes, that is 25% stronger where you're not going to defend that. So even though it sounds weird, I actually prefer to deal with the early 3-minute attack. And that is what I'm going to be preparing for every game. There is one way to play these AI challenges, and that is that you could just gamble that they're going to go for the 7-minute attack and, you know, for example, play CC first in your natural, I mean, not in front of the main ramp. And then just play super greedy, super economical, and just kind of restart the game every single time they do attack. Well, that is not really my vibe. I like to find solutions that can always win this kind of challenge. That is the most fun part for me to do it. So here I have a planetary. You could see that they decided to attack at like 3:15 or so, I believe, which is, I think, not even their earliest attack, but I thought it was pretty nice to see. They realized I had a planetary, they couldn't break it, they went back right away. which I'm actually not entirely happy with, because if they would have attacked, I would have managed to kill a lot of units there at the start of the game, which would have been very nice. But at least we know that they didn't play the most economic build possible, and that is very, very nice. So, one advantage of this command center build, where I go for the planetary at the front, is that you actually have another command center to make SCVs with. Like, it might not be something you think about, because it's a planetary at the front. Not on my third base, but I still get to use it to produce SCVs. You could also, for example, go for a 1-base 1-1-1, maybe make a bunker, or either that or just wall it off with like an extra engineering bay, get fast tanks and liberators, defend it that way. But this way, you have another command center to make SCVs with, which is super, super nice. Now, this is going to be a very important theme throughout this game, is that, first of all, I need to find out what races they are, and then I need to adjust accordingly. So far, I believe we saw 1 Protoss and 1 Zerg. I mean, it could still be 4 Protoss players and 1 Zerg, or 3 Terrans that I don't know about, right? Now, if they were only Zerg, for example, we would focus really hard on walling the front. Because Zerg, the air units are not going to be as threatening later on. Broodlords are annoying, but the AI tends to not make that many of them. So then we can just, build like 10 engineering bases at the front and go on like that. If we play against Protoss, we would still focus on walling on the front. But if we play against Terrans, even if it's just 1 Terran, in fact, I think you already cannot really do that. Now we're playing against 5 random players, which means it's extremely likely that there's going to be a Terran in there, right? So that means that this is going to be the last wall we truly build at the front, and then we're going to have to space out our buildings a little more. Now this is going to be attack number 2. There's a lot of Stalkers. Actually, it looks like there's 2 Protoss players and 2 Zergs already, judging from that. I see 1 Terran, which I'm not entirely happy with. The planetary is taking a lot of damage, and it looks like it's falling. Now, the reason why it takes so much damage so fast is very likely because either the Immortal that was attacking it or the Siege Tanks in the back are from one of the players that have 25% extra damage. Now, I don't want either the barracks or the planetary to die. And if you guys are wondering how the hell I'm staying alive here, is because the AI, before it gets enough units to confidently break liberators, they tend to derp a little bit on the low ground, especially without vision. So notice how especially those weaker units, such as Adepts, they keep coming forward and then walking back. The Immortals, for the most part, they were fighting, but the early Adepts that they all built, they just kind of got owned and walked back, and that's why we were able to survive. Luckily, we saved the barracks as well. You might not think that's a big deal, but you needed to make factories later on if I want more factories, as well as if I wanted, for example, a Ghost Academy. I can already tell you guys, that is something I have been experimenting with, going for 1 Ghost Academy with nukes, because the AI is actually not that good at dodging nukes, so sometimes you can land absolutely massive ones. Now, so far this game has gone pretty smooth for us. I think that attack hit a little bit harder than I was expecting. Almost lost my planetary, almost lost my barracks. Those would have both been devastating, but instead they're both alive, so there's nothing to complain about here for me. Now, I'm already starting building turrets. Anti-air is a bit unpredictable in these AI challenges. Like, for example, you noticed earlier there was 1 or 2 Banshees, I believe. If I didn't have the turrets ready, I would have had to unsiege my liberators to tickle the Banshees to death with their anti-air attack, which, doesn't sound very pleasant. So you always need to make a lot of turrets at the front. Notice how I haven't even added extra production because I've been so busy on actually getting the right setup. Now, you saw 2 tech buildings in my natural earlier. I have a fusion core and an armory right there. Fusion core extremely necessary for liberator range. Like, this kind of challenges are always going to be 100% focused on efficiency. You need the most ridiculous efficiency ever, especially in this one against the extreme AI, because their units are even 25% stronger. So if you can put your liberators just 1 or 2 range further back while still covering the same area, that sounds absolutely fantastic. Now, you might have noticed I just started building turrets close to my main base. There are actually 2 reasons for this. The first reason is that, very annoyingly, by the way, the AI sometimes likes attacking you by air, which most of the time is the Terran players. The Terran players love to send sometimes even Ravens dropping auto turrets, battle cruisers, Banshees, landed Vikings, stuff like that. Very, very annoying. Sometimes there's also drops by Protoss and Zerg, which are not quite as annoying as the battle cruisers and stuff, fortunately, but still kind of annoying to deal with. And the second reason is that if you notice on the minimap, you can see a gas in the middle right side of the map. The AI already has that base. The AI probably also already has the base to the left of this defensive setup over here. And those setups I might be able to deny with ranged liberators. Now, keep in mind what I said about the efficiency. If I just siege a liberator there and that's going to be it, they will pick up the liberator pretty easily and that's it. So that's why I'm going to make a lot of turrets to cover the liberators. Now here, notice what I said about the tanks and stuff coming from the low ground. These tanks are easily going to break to the planetary together with the Immortal, at least it seems like it. I do have a lot of tanks and liberators already, so this fight is going to be more efficient than I thought. I still think the planetary is probably going to fall to those siege tanks in the back. There's more siege tanks even coming up. The repair doing a good job here. I also believe I already got both building armor and range on the turrets and the planetary. Maybe just building armor, I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, trading just the wall off for the entire army is, you know, really not something I'm going to complain about. And I think now you guys can already see what I was mentioning about having to push the wall further back. If I keep walling the front, that's going to be a planetary dying. A planetary in total costs 550 minerals and 150 gas. Trading that, even for 10 siege tanks, is absolutely not worth it in these challenges. So walling off just becomes a pretty bad idea. If you play these really extreme challenges like this one, 1v5 against the extreme AI or 1v7 against insane AI, you don't just want to be efficient, you almost want to be, I guess, game-breaking in a way. Like, you want such a ridiculous efficiency, and you cannot really get that if you keep trading buildings for army. So in this case, I decided to build 3 more E-bays one more time at the front. I don't think I'll be rewalling this one more time, but I don't actually have that much supply yet. Like, keep in mind, I have 134 supply. I'm going up against 5 computers combined. They're probably sitting at about 700 supply. I wasn't really confident defending without the wall. I didn't want to commit as much as a planetary because it costs a lot of gas too. But I did think making 3 E-bays one more time would be alright, and now I'm just going to keep adding more turrets. Now notice how I started sieging this base over here. Extremely important part of these AI challenges, denying bases for multiple reasons. Not just, you know, does that mean that I can maybe mine from there myself later on? Like, that is 2 mineral patches, could be about 2,000 minerals, which is 20 turrets, right? Or repairing my entire army. Very, very important. But it also baits the opponent to try and defend it, which very often leads to only half the AI players attacking you at the front and a couple of them trying to find your one awkward liberator that's kind of out of range and really awkward for them to battle. So really, really important move there. Now, I'm always very happy to see that the Protoss AI, they make Phoenixes. Sometimes they make carriers or Void Rays, but the Phoenixes really are the nicest thing to see because they don't really deal that much damage and they die to turrets very, very fast. Now here we are going to be able to deal with this army relatively easily. It seems like I'm almost up to 20 siege tanks and 10 liberators, a lot of turrets, but once again we do lose the wall. And I'm going to keep saying this, I know it sounds really crazy, but even losing 3 E-bays for that entire army is already going to be kind of questionable. Like on this map, I only have 3 bases. The opponents probably have about 15. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to, you know, calculate it all right now because I'm trying to focus on explaining the most important things, but they probably have about 15 bases, and this AI mines, 20% more, or 40% more, so they have way more economy, so 3 E-bays are basically worth, what would it be, maybe like 3,000 resources or something, so you really want to be careful with trading out buildings, and now I think the moment has arrived to stop rebuilding them. Now repair, insanely important. Repair costs 25% of the unit cost itself. So no matter how low HP your unit is, you always want to repair instead of building a new one if you can. That's also the reason why a lot of time I siege these liberators a little bit further back. Sometimes I don't even harass. Like, notice how on the bottom side I'm not harassing that mineral line anymore. It's because I currently don't have the tools to defend that liberator very easily. Ideally, I want to go up to a battlecruiser because or maybe a couple of Vikings, because that's really going to help me out. But even trading one liberator for a little bit here is really not going to be that efficient. Now I decided to bring a little backup, so I went with 2 liberators. Still not 100% sure that's the best idea, but you know, that's all we got for now. Now another thing that's also a really nice tool to use. I love that in these AI challenges I have so much to explain because I really try to maximize absolutely everything. You might have noticed how I dropped a couple supply depots from the command center. That's because you run out of resources, so you don't really have to drop mules necessarily. You can drop as many depots as you like. You can even start doing it at like 110 supply. It kind of depends on how much eco you really want. I think in this game, I saw 5. I don't know if I dropped 5 or 6 or 7 depots, but that's already going to save me 500 minerals right there. And as you can tell by the resources, I barely have 500 minerals right now, so that's really nice. I was also experimenting a lot with the upgrades here because it's easy. One of the games, for example, I tried to go triple armory and just get all the upgrades as fast as possible, which was nice. But I think you just spend a little bit too much. So this game I was dead set on just making one armory and upgrading everything one by one. Which takes a long time because that's 9 freaking upgrades, right? Like you have 3 upgrades for vehicle weapons, 3 upgrades for vehicle armor, and 3 upgrades for ship weapons. The armor upgrades are still merged, if you're wondering. Now notice how I did lose that Liberator I see on the left side. That is indeed not super worth it. But now I'm gonna make my first battlecruiser. I'm also gonna get my first Thors up. And I feel like my turret positioning and stuff is all looking very solid here. Like, these games all really come down to the small things. Like, notice how at this point I mean, I wouldn't say I'm out of minerals, but my bases are starting to mine out, and I only have 400 minerals, which is not that great. Here, I tried to unseat that Liberator in time, but sadly, we did lose it already. I do have enough turrets to be able to take care of those Liberators. Now, fun fact about those Ultralisks, I believe those Ultralisks have 25% extra health. So their health is like 650 or something like this. They're just absurdly tanky Ultralisk. Now, I also lost a Liberator on this side. I think this Protoss player over here doesn't have such specialized anti-air, so I can probably deal with that with just my Liberators. Like, I just need a couple more Liberators here. The Thor is also really going to help out there. But besides that, I really want to deny the eco, so I keep trying. But if I lose one more Liberator, I'm not going to be super happy with it. Meantime, my battlecruiser is finishing, which means that I can now use that battlecruiser to harass the left base more effectively, which is going to be very, very nice. BCs don't often get a role in these AI challenges, so it's very nice when you actually do get to use them. And I think on this map in particular, they are extremely awesome. I had a couple of runs where I tried to play against 10 insane AI on a very specific map. And I tried to go for BCs, which sounds like a good idea, because at some point you would think, okay, you have so many tanks, turrets, and Liberators, you're never going to get broken again, right? Well, that's wrong, because 10 insane AI Zergs, they make so many Corruptors that, I'm not exaggerating, even if you have 100 turrets, they will fly over your turrets and kill your Liberators. So if you have, let's say, 24 supply in 4 battlecruisers, that means your defense is already not going to be enough. On this specific map, against 5 players who do have a limit on how many units they can build, I think my defense was good enough, and I'm also only on 3 bases, which means my SCV count is low, that I could afford a couple battlecruisers. And notice how useful the BC is here, because the BC is actually what's baiting all these units here. The Liberators don't actually have that effect. If you notice on the right side, the Liberators really haven't been baiting that much army. One time they did. I think it was even from the blue Protoss, not Teal, but I could be wrong about that, and then the Liberator died. But here the BC is basically forcing all of Teal's army to come to this side, and then the Liberators can back it up. And at the same time, BCs are so tanky that they're not gonna die to like a couple Phoenixes and 1 carrier like the Liberators have been, right? I also have Yamato, which means that you could potentially deal with a carrier even. Now this is something that is just super, super nice and satisfying. That is 6 Liberator dying pretty much for free. I mean, I had to repair my battlecruiser a bit, which probably cost me like 27 resources or something, you know? So I would say killing 6 Liberators for that is probably pretty good. Now my upgrades do mean, like the way I'm doing upgrades, I should say, with the single armory, do mean that the battlecruisers themselves are not going to be that powerful for a while. At this point, I believe I'm on +3 vehicle attack, but I have 0 attack for the BCs, and that's where the BCs really shine. Battlecruisers deal so much damage when you're up in attack upgrades. If you're down in attack upgrades versus armor upgrades, they all of a sudden do nothing. But that's completely fine with me, because I'm here baiting their units into my Liberators, and the Liberators are doing an absolutely absurd amount of damage, and that's exactly what I want. And notice how these attacks have gotten easier and more comfortable to stop every single time, because there's always 1 player, or in this case it was more like 1.5 players if you count the purple Terran, that are kind of derping around trying to deal with my Liberator BC turret setup over here. Now I do need to make sure that I keep repairing every single unit. Sometimes it gets a bit tricky, because I have so many tanks and turrets and Liberators stacked on top of each other that the units become kind of hard to reach, and I'm not sure if it's worth it to really try and micromanage and unsiege this and that to kind of make it a whole puzzle, just so I can be repairing my units. But honestly, if you have the APM, it probably is. Now there's another army over here. The Protoss armies usually scare me the least, and I'm going to say this very carefully, because it depends on the time in game. I know from the challenges I've done against AIs that Protoss early on is actually the scariest, because they have, for example, Archons, which are super good against tanks. So if you have a tank-heavy setup, Archons are really going to be a pain in the ass to deal with. And Immortals are super good against buildings. So the early Immortal Archon, especially if you guys remember what I talked about in the start of the game, if they go for the 7-minute attack, they tend to have a lot of Immortal Archon and you're just not going to have enough yet. But later on, if you get, let's say, 15 Liberators, 20 Siege Tanks, then the Protoss units are usually not strong enough to break through. And what's really nice for me, in this case, is that the Protoss AIs tend to not make that many Tempests. Tempests really seem like a one-off. At some point I even thought that they would never build them, but now I sometimes see them and it really just feels like an extreme rarity. And even then, they don't have human Tempest micro. The way they micro them is kind of like a Brood Lord. If you guys remember how they use Brood Lords in these challenges, it's kind of like they attack your turrets and they tickle them, probably don't have a lot of upgrades, and then once the rest of the army dies, they kind of fall back as a more like a general command of like, we have lost this war, we gotta back out of here. Now this Liberator was actually in danger of dying, but luckily there were so many turrets there to save the day. Now at this point, you would look at the situation and you would think, all right, well, I mean, you've pretty much done it, right? Like, you're maxed, you have a big bank. Well, you know, these AI challenges, they can surprise you, that is for sure. One of the challenges I did in the, or well, no, it was this specific challenge, just on another map, another attempt. I survived for 30 minutes. I thought I almost had it done. And then I lost, I rewinded, and there was one AI with 50,000 minerals. Well, being maxed out. I'm not even exaggerating, by the way. I think it was probably 49k. I remember that it was really close to 50, but not quite. So it was probably like, I don't know, 41.9k minerals or something. But yeah, they are so rich. It's insane. Now, this map is not going to be that bad because they don't have as many bases. The map I played on that time had an absurd amount of bases. So here, I probably don't have to survive for 2 hours like I would on that map. But I do have enough experience to tell you guys that this is not it for sure. Now, so far, I've been feeling like these holds have been very comfortable. But I did notice that my bank has been dropping a bit, and I've been losing a couple Liberators. And sometimes it's hard to realize that. Like, sometimes you look at this defensive setup and you're like, okay, I mean, this looks hella nice, right? Like, I'm still probably buzzing. But before you notice it, you might have lost like 5 Liberators over time. 2 others might be red HP or something like that. And then all of a sudden you get broken. So it's really important to stay on top of that. Now, normally in these challenges, kind of depending on how big the map is, you could consider making extra command centers. I do like doing that, but I kind of feel like if you're only on 3 bases here, you probably don't want to make extra command centers. Like, you know, you mine out your base fast enough. You don't really have to sack SCVs because you can still do it later. And this is probably a more efficient way to do it. Just stay on like 3 command centers. Now, periodically, I like to scan the map. Like, keep in mind, I've never completed a 1vx against the extreme AI before. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly how much money they have. So since I'm already pretty much mined out, at some point I'm going to try to take these remaining minerals on the gold base. Right now I'm going to try to take them with my regular SCVs. At some point I might use mules. But for now, I think it's just important that I have vision and don't make the wrong moves over here. It's 22 minutes. I know for sure that at 22 minutes the AIs are still maxed and they have a lot of army. There could be one exception in this game actually, and that is Teal. Because I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but both the bases I've been harassing have been Teal. I actually think that was quite lucky for me, because that means that he's, well, first of all, he's gonna lose a lot of eco, while being the player sucking out the most eco from the other players. Almost lost a clump of SCVs there, thank goodness I didn't. And he can't really split his army properly dealing with both of the sides. So I think Teal is probably the weakest player in this game, even though he's mined a lot. I think it's pretty fair to say that he was the weakest here. Now, I was about to move my battlecruiser to the left, and then I saw this massive army pop up. Now, on this map, with this... I have a massive concave, by the way. Like, this concave is actually absurd. I think right now, in this fight, you guys could tell more than ever before why I didn't wall off at the front and kind of give them the concave, because my concave right now is absolutely disgusting. Now, I did lose another Liberator there, which is not very comfortable at all, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm still maxed. I still have 1500, 1500. I do think at this point, no more money is coming in. And now we're going to do something important, and that is that we probably should not be rebuilding units anymore. So remember what I said about repair being only 25% of the cost of the unit? If I would remake a unit now, that's pretty much the cost of repairing 4 of the units. So remember, you know, if I make 1 more BC, it would be better for me to just keep all of these BCs alive and repair all of them. And even if I have, because I'm definitely going to drop supply at this point, at some point in this game, right? AIs get more passive as the game goes on, and they still have a way bigger army than me. I'm going to lose some supply. I probably don't want to rebuild it because repairing is just so much better. Now, this is a very important little bit of information here. Notice how there's a ton of workers over here. This means that they have mined out their bases. It's not that they're trying to expand on each other's bases. They don't do that. But they do go to the next closest mineral patch when they're completely mined out. So seeing all these workers over here means that purple, teal, and what is that? Orange, Zerg, I believe, they are all mined out in their own bases. So now we know that at least 3 of them are mined out. The other 2 players could be mining from here. I don't even remember what the... I know there's a blue Protoss. I don't remember the 5th color, actually. Probably very... Oh, no. I already said blue. Yeah, never mind. I guess we'll see later which color the last player is. I think it's also a Protoss, right? I think it was only... Was it 1 Terran, 3 Protoss, and 1 Zerg? I feel like that's what it is, but I could be wrong here. Now, my BCs are going to be able to take care of this base now, which is very, very nice. Keep in mind what I said about the upgrades on the BCs. By now, we are 8 minutes further in the game, so the upgrades are already going to look a lot better. And it doesn't seem like there's units around here anymore, so I decided to go for these gold mineral patches myself. I scanned to the left to see what the purple army looks like. It's still a pretty massive freaking army. Actually, if you would put our armies against each other on, like, equal micro, it will probably be a pretty close freaking battle, you know? But since I do have such a monstrous position in my base, and obviously I have the human micro advantage here, don't want to say that too loud before Alpha Star comes and hunts me down, but you guys know what I mean. In this case, I know how the extreme AI is going to respond and react in micro, and I can play accordingly and make use of that. Now, at this point, the bank definitely is shrinking pretty significantly. We are below 1500, 1500 now, and we're also 7 supply below max. Now, the supply, you might think it looks good, but keep in mind these AIs are always going to have a higher supply than me combined until they are truly screwed, right? Now, this was kind of weird to see. Oh, it was the yellow Protoss that I was forgetting earlier. I don't know why there were like 20 slow zealots there. Now, this is an absolute Omega army. I scanned the purple armor earlier. I lost a Thor there on the top right side, which is very, very painful. Just dropped about 30 supply already. And this is what I'm talking about, guys. Their army is still pretty freaking massive. They neuroed my battlecruiser, but I think they might not even have enough anti-air to kill it after that. So we dropped about 35 supply in that battle. Or actually more, about 30. And that is 30 supply that we cannot replace. Now, I do think a lot of it was SCVs. I think it was... I know we lost at least 1 Thor. And I want to say we probably lost at least 10 SCVs. So maybe we lost, I know, 2 Liberators and 2 tanks. Or maybe it was actually 25 SCVs. I don't know. We just lost a lot of stuff. But the more armies we kill, the closer we get to them actually not having a big army. And to some degree, it is actually very nice to have the AIs attack you. For just a very important reason, is sometimes the AI decides to be passive. If they are passive with, let's say the army that just attacked me was passive, I wouldn't really be able to move out. Like that amount of air units, void rays, everything coming in, first of all, they would come in from a surround, right? I wouldn't be sitting on a ramp, but I also wouldn't have all my turrets against the air units, so... If they have an army like that, you have to be so careful with moving out. And every extra army we kill, that means we can just go forward just a little more. Now here with this army, luckily for me, there was actually not that much anti-air. It was pretty much just tank. I think it was like 2 Ravens and then tank medevacs, so that's going to be pretty nice for me to kill. Though I do think they managed to steal a decent amount of my... don't really want to call them my minerals, because they're definitely their minerals. But they stole a decent amount of my minerals during that time. That's a little bit annoying. Now, I really just want to be smart here. I know I'm down to 160 supply. My army supply is still pretty massive. I think I have less than 10 SCVs, so my army supply is probably about 150. I have enough money to be able to repair a decent amount, I think. But I definitely don't think I'm ready to actually move down here. So I think we've killed a very significant amount of the army. I think we killed... Well, we saw the purple Terran still had Marine tank, but I honestly don't think he's going to have that much left. I think the teal Protoss, like I mentioned before, he was already the weakest. I have to imagine he also doesn't have that much left. So there's pretty much 3 more players that I'm worried about. Yeah, exactly. Those players still have a decent army. It actually looks... Okay, so it's 2 Protoss players. Combined, it was a pretty strong army, but it looks like it was just blue that had a good army. Like, notice how earlier we saw the yellow Protoss attack me with like 20 slow zealots or something ridiculous like that. when I scanned that army, it looked like it was just more slow zealots, more than anything else, really. So I think blue still has a big army, and the Zerg probably has a big army as well. The purple Terran has a medium-sized army. Combined, they would still crush me out in the open. I think they might have lost the ability to break me in my base, however. And the AI is quite smart here. And usually what I notice is that the moment their army cannot break you anymore, like for sure, they also stop attacking. And it's usually around the moment when there are still like a couple of small in air quotes, right? Small armies out on the map, but they feel like individually they can't break you anymore. So I really think at this point, I mean, there's still a lot of workers out on the map, despite us already killing like a gajillion of them, it felt like. But I would guess that they are probably on a combined 600 supply without much of a bank. I think that's a pretty good estimate. Could be a little bit less than that. On the minimap, you can see Purple's army look pretty menacing. Now, this Thor almost died to those Immortals from the low ground, but we do manage to save it. And this is an extremely nice thing to happen for us, guys, because we just pretty much singled out one of their armies, and we were able to kill it in full. And now this army by itself was not the biggest problem. This army accompanying the other armies in the middle of the map, that was going to be the problem. And I also think that blue was pretty much the main player mining from these minerals besides teal. So if we manage to take care of him, that means we might actually be able to secure those. Look at those juicy mineral patches to the right. We might actually be able to secure those, and that would be absolutely fantastic. But was that an hallucinated Colossus? He's playing like me out here. I thought I was the only one doing weird stuff like that. Oh, also, another tell to know that one of the AIs is truly screwed is the War Prisms. I don't know why it happens, but when they are dead, they tend to have like a bunch of prisms out here. Now, this was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. First of all, I didn't know that I had these... I didn't know I had these mineral patches left, but... He dropped SCVs in my base to steal them from me. That is probably the most human behavior I've ever seen. I feel like that's like, you know, a Silver League viewer that just gets like a 5,000 IQ idea kind of thing. Like, not even a Grandmaster player, but like specifically like a low league player who's just like a theory crafting beast would come up with that, you know, dropping SCVs in my base to freaking mine for my patches. Now, obviously, the only reason he knew I had these patches is because the Extreme AI has map hacks, but... You know, hopefully silver players don't. If you map back and you're in silver, that's, you know, might be time to hang up the mouse in that case and, I don't know, maybe become a farmer or something. All right, here we go. We have a purple army that has like a lot of siege tanks left. The Zerg army doesn't look very menacing at all. That was a bunch of Zerglings and Corruptors. Now, it could be that that army was just nearby, but... This was the first moment that actually surprised me a little bit here, because I know the AI behavior, I know roughly how much they have. The Zerg didn't really seem to have as much as I had initially anticipated. And I think I can explain it now I'm thinking about it. So notice how we don't have vision of the middle bases on the left side of the map, the left and north side of the map. The blue Protoss has lost so many armies, and he's still making more. So I think what happened here is that blue just took a disproportionate amount of bases. I mean, you can already tell blue is taking the middle bottom base again, even though that doesn't even have mineral patches. He also has a building in the bottom left main base, and he spawned in the top right. So it really seems like blue just has a disproportionate amount of bases. He could even have both of those middle bases, and that's why the Zerg has nothing. And that would be very, very good for us, because I mean, as far as I know, they don't randomly share resources. Unless they die. Sometimes they, you know, they surrender. You click OK. They share the resources to the ally. Actually, that's another deep strategy you could think about in some cases where you don't accept the surrender, so they don't share resources. But I think it's really blue hogging all the resources here. Teal, I'm 100% sure, is screwed. I think purple lost his final army just now. Yellow didn't seem very menacing. And the Zerg seems to be in trouble, so it might really be just blue here. Now, just judging by the amount of Immortals he has, I still don't really want to go across the map. But, I mean, he's losing a lot of them, guys, and he's not going to have infinite money, even if he was hogging all of the bases. Now, I really do still think that Teal taking both of the middle bases on my side, that really was one of the best things to happen to me here. And now he ran out of anti-air. Now I'm going to be able to go forward. I'm going to be able to mine from those patches. Notice how my bank is pretty much entirely depleted. Now, I wasn't very happy seeing that the Zerg actually had more units. I was hoping that he would have run out entirely. But it's really the same army as it was before. It's like a handful of Zerglings with 2 Corruptors and a bunch of Overlords behind it. Now, sometimes the AI does something funny and they have Dropper Lords with random units inside. It would be very funny to see like a you know, an Ultralisk pop out of that Overlord, or maybe like an Infestor that then knurls you or something like that. That would be pretty freaking hilarious to see. Probably not as hilarious as the guy dropping SCVs in my base to take my freaking minerals, but still pretty hilarious. Now, you guys might wonder why I didn't take the gas in the bottom middle base earlier. I just don't think the gas really matters at this point. Like, I'm pretty much just going to be repairing all of my units with the remaining minerals. If I'm going to build something that is not that, it's probably going to be missile turrets to either secure this base or try to push the left bases, something like this. But I think the gas is, yeah, just not that important. I know it sounds crazy because most people know gas is the more important resources, but here, I think the minerals are just way more important. And I'm just throwing down a bunch of scans. I'm really trying to get a feel for how many units they have left. It doesn't seem like blue and yellow have more units left, because then they would have attacked this base by now, I think. So now I'm pretty close to deciding to move out with my ground army. I'm just going to attack these top guys with my battlecruiser, see what there is to see here. And notice, by the way, how valuable the freaking PCs have been, right? Like, you guys might have doubted them. Here my Liberator shows that the AI is not even mining those gases either, so he literally took that Nexus for the memes. Here there's a bunch of Zealots and Immortals. And the AIs do use a bit of, well, I mean, I'm not sure they use the all-army hotkey, but for the most part, they just swing their entire army around. So the fact there's just a couple Zealots and Immortals walking at my battlecruisers makes me think that they don't really have much left here. Now, I'm taking my Watchtower, or not, well, they're not really my Watchtowers, but sometimes I talk like the entire map belongs to me, even though in reality it belongs way more to the AI. I was actually right about the blue Protoss player hogging that top middle base at least, because we can see the Nexus over there. Now these bases seem relatively easy to kill, and now I have at least a bottom Watchtower. I might be able to move out with my main army here. Like, now I know. At least if I, like, think about it this way, right? If I get attacked by an army, let's say the Zerg still has a pretty big army, or maybe the purple Terran in the bottom side, I can see it in time with the Watchtower and still fall back to my turrets, which is going to be more than good enough. But I do think at this point we have probably gotten it. I think, especially with those two, or is it 3 Protoss players? Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that Teal's pretty much also eliminated. Blue, yellow, and Teal seem pretty much out of the game, so they're only going to have 2 armies left. Unless I fight with all my Liberators and tanks on siege, we should be able to deal with 2 armies anyway. Now, I want to say that very carefully, because I have lost some of these AI challenges in the last moment just by doing something ridiculously stupid. So, you know, if you try these challenges yourself, please keep your confidence in check, or your cockiness, however you want to call it. Now, purple definitely had a bunch of tanks, but I haven't seen any anti-air units yet, so that's going to make that a little more comfortable for me. The air units are always going to be the scariest, by the way, just because the Thor is my only legit anti-air. The yellow Protoss gives up, which is always very nice to get your first surrender. Doesn't mean that you're going to win the game, unfortunately. It has happened to me before, but it is always a very good feeling. But the Thors are my only real anti-air, and I only have 6 of them, I believe. Liberators, I know in some situations they seem like they're good against air, like a bunch of mutas, but Liberators, realistically, they really suck against air, to be honest. I can't put it any other way. Like, they just tickle. If you have a bunch of splash or a bunch of light units bunched up that you can attack with the splash damage, it's a different story. If there's like 3 Void Rays and 1 carrier and a couple Vikings, the Liberators really are not going to be your preferred weapon of choice, I can tell you that much. So air units are always the scariest. And I do know that Zerg doesn't make that many air units besides Corruptors usually. So it would be on the Terran. This Terran didn't have any anti-air units, so I think we're going to be safe. The blue Protoss, the one that was hogging all of the resources, 5 GG as well. So now there are 3 players left. I'm still convinced that Teal doesn't have anything, so now I guess it's going to be up to the Zerg to show me what he has. The most annoying part of the Zerg is that Teal surrenders, just like I mentioned. The Zergs always have 1,000,000 Queens and Spore Crawlers, which are actually very good. Spore Crawlers got buffed recently, so they're absolute freaking demons against air units. So against my battlecruisers, they would do pretty well. Now here I decided to teleport the one rallying BC that I had with my main army into the Zerg's main to see what was up. There's a couple queens over here, but there's no units to be seen yet, and that's nice. Pretty cool burrow micro, actually. I'm not quite sure if you guys noticed, but he burrowed the freaking queen to avoid my battlecruiser attacks, which is quite something. That's the kind of micro everyone wishes that they could do, but they try it in a real game and it has absolutely 0 impact. Like I mentioned, there's more spores and queens. Those spores actually got transfused. Now that is more spores than I really want to fight against, to be honest, so I decided to take it a little bit slower. I do have all my Liberate. This is when I wish there was a Liberator upgrade that you can upgrade them so they can attack buildings or something. Because right now, if you look at the minimap, you just see a bunch of Liberators chilling there. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I would fly them over to the Zerg base right now, they would probably just die. The purple Terran surrenders. That means only the Zerg is left. The Zerg would have reinforced his army by now if he had enough units, and it means that we are going to defeat this challenge. Now, my thoughts on this challenge were that it was actually an extremely hard challenge on all the maps that I tried, and then we had this one which made it a little easier. So I think for the next one, if I want to make it even harder, I'm going to be choosing a more difficult map. I was also thinking about playing against I don't know what the name would be. I guess I'll let you guys suggest it in the comments, but like against 3 ultra extreme AIs where I buff them by like 75% or something. In that case, their ultralisk would almost have 1,000 HP, for example, just like carriers and battlecruisers and whatnot, and that would be absolutely terrifying. But this one is going to be a dub. This is going to be the final hatchery going down, and usually they GG pretty shortly after that. Typically, you have to kill the defensive structures as well as the main bases, and that is going to be it. 1v5 against the extreme AI is a success, and now I'm so excited to see the units lost because I know it's disgusting. 13k against, well, I'll let you guys do the math. I know you guys like doing that. It's probably about 350k or something like that, which is just a disgusting amount of efficiency. It's probably pretty close to 30 times, maybe like 27 times or something like that. And let's look at these units, see if any of them has a particular high amount of kills. The highest Liberator had 77 kills, I believe I saw. Means a lot of them died, otherwise they would have more. The highest tank so far had 78. Looks like that is going to be the one with the highest kills indeed. 78 kills on the siege tank. That battlecruiser had 153. There was also another one, this one with 188 kills. That has to be the leader of the game. The Thors don't have too many kills, and that is going to be it for today. The 1v5 Extreme AI Challenge has been defeated. Make sure to let your suggestions in the comments on which one you would see next. If you would like me to see we do it Protoss or make it even harder. But that's going to be it for today. If you enjoyed this video, give a video a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all for the next challenge. Adios.